Om Shanti. Good morning. In 1982, in the month of April, Baba spoke the renunciation course of Murlis, and after that it seems that it was teachers' meetings, and so last week there was one particular Murli and part of it was for teachers, and again today the same. One particular Murli and then a specific part for teachers. And Baba's asked the question, what does success depend upon? And after hearing the renunciation Murlis, the teachers have said, renunciation. Success depends on renunciation. And so Baba has picked up on that in a very interesting way. Sometimes, in recent times at least, we've often talked about process. And it's a word that comes up in all self-development courses, and people thinking about transformation process. And there's an expression they use, trust the process. And when we used to talk to Dadi about process, she'd say, what do you mean? Not that she didn't understand the word, but she didn't agree with the concept. And today's Murli, I'm sure when I heard it at that time, or read it at that time, I didn't put it in that context. But today's Murli sort of hit me, that it's a total contrast to the word process, in the sense that Baba's saying that if you're going to say, first I give up the consciousness of me and mine and my body, and then I give up the consciousness of my relatives and take it slowly, slowly in that way, well, what you're doing is striking a bargain with God, but you're doing it in installments. And in terms of karma philosophy, you know that whatever is the output, so is the input. And so Baba's made it very plain. You give to Baba in installments, what's going to happen? The return you get is also going to be a little bit, a little bit, a little bit in installments. And so then you say, but I'm not having the experiences that I would like to have. And it's because you want everything, but you're not ready to give up anything. However much you're ready to renounce, that is the fortune you receive. And many, many Murlis in recent times have emphasized that God gives equally to everyone. There's no barrier or no restriction that God puts on anything. And then, how come the whole thing becomes number-wise? It's because of our exchange and our personal connection with Baba, and to what extent I give and to what extent I take. And so the number-wise then comes in, and it's, of course, then gradual, gradual, gradual from one to the end. And so, what is it that allows the soul to make that contract with Baba instantly? And of course, when Dadi used to laugh at us and say, what's this process stuff? And we would remember the story of Karachi and the story of the Dadis. There wasn't any possibility of process. It was instant, it was everything. And it was all or nothing. And there's a term that I hear in Christianity, and some years ago somebody started applying it to Brahman life. And you have the priesthood, then you have the lay people. And of course, what applies to the priesthood and the disciplines they follow are very specific. And then what applies to the lay people is different. And so somebody started saying that, well, there are the Brahmins and there are the surrendered Brahmins, and I don't mean surrender in physical terms of living in the center, but surrender in terms of consciousness and having a way of life which is very definitely a Brahman way of life. And so that's one side. And then the other side is the people who pick and choose. There's another expression I've heard, a la carte Brahmins. There's a menu, but out of the menu you choose whatever it is that suits you. And so over the years, it seems that there was that total surrender. Then it was the souls who became the instruments to establish service in Bharat, which was a very, very challenging time for many reasons. And then through the 80s and 90s, and we see the expansion of the yajna, and sometimes we see people doing things that we find a little bit different. And so you can see that this is where the lay people, the people who love Brahman life, but they'll pick and choose whatever it is that's comfortable and convenient. And so this is where the whole subject of process comes in. And so Baba's saying that what you have to do is to make a decision. And I know that sometimes we explain all the different stages and this step, this step, this step, this step. And I think it's important to understand the different steps. Even Baba, talking about renunciation, took it in different steps. But the real decision about whether I want to belong to Baba or whether I still want to have a little bit of this and a little bit of this, that really is the question. And so if I want to belong to Baba, then that decision is a decision of the heart. And so that first recognition of Baba with that love, that faith and that desire to totally belong to Baba, and that gives the power to be able to detach from everything else. And so that stage where really I'm able then to do tapasya. Why that step of renunciation comes first is because if I haven't experienced that stage of passion, of love for God that inspires me to renounce, then that stage in which I'm really able to keep alive that love and keep alive that fire in which that yoga can bring about transformation isn't going to happen. And so again, within the renunciation, number-wise, and so of course, then within the tapasya, it's going to be number-wise. And then within the quality of service, it's also going to be number-wise. So number-wise begins and the number-wise continues. And so to what extent is it that for me there's just that vision of Baba in front of me, and so my love, my surrender is just simply to God, and to know that this is what I was looking for and this is what Baba's offering me, and I can take everything from God if this is what I choose to do. And so it's very beautiful hearing these muralis again and seeing how profound they are, and then also seeing what's been happening through the years. Baba's also very much spoken to those who come to Baba now, because Baba's saying that it's not that those who came at the beginning had greater opportunity than you. No, everyone has space in God's heart now, because God's heart is unlimited. So it's not that those who came earlier have taken everything and there's nothing left anymore. God's property is unlimited. And so you can really take as much as you choose, as much as you want, right now at this moment. So that's one part of it. Another part of it that I'd like to take up is Baba talking about this word, my. And very often we've said that my is not right. Baba's interpretation of my is very different today. Very interesting how Baba turns everything around in such a powerful, positive way that you know that this is now what you have to do in terms of moving forward. How often have you heard Baba talk about how when you say my sanskars, my nature, etc., 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 and even yesterday it came up that as soon as you say my nature or my sanskars, then usually you're referring to your sanskars of Kali Yuga. You're not talking about your sanskars of Satyuga. If I were to say my nature, my Satyugi sanskars, my deity sanskars, fine. But what we generally say is, what can I do? My sanskars, and it's the Kali Yugi ones. In that context, I was saying, well, hang on, you're saying my sanskar, so who's the master? And just think about it. Who is speaking? And so if at this moment I, the soul, am saying this is my sanskar, well, how come I don't have mastery over that sanskar? So all the excuses we give Baba, Baba deals with all those excuses and sends them out of the window, so that really there are no excuses that can remain. Really, all you have to do is to say, Ji haan, I understand. And if I understand, let me then follow it through in my life in the way that Baba's showing me. And so when I'm saying my, let me be very, very aware of what that means. And when I say my sanskar, who is speaking? Am I in that awareness of I, the soul? The sanskar can't speak on its own. The sanskar belongs to the soul. It doesn't have an existence outside of the soul. And it's not the sanskar saying, my soul. Just as early days, Baba used to explain to us that the hand can't say, my soul. The body can't say, my soul. The soul is saying, my body. But today Baba's taking it on the inner level. The sanskar can't speak and say anything. It's the soul that is speaking and saying, my sanskar. And so to be aware of that and to come back to that stage where I have all rights, mastery over myself. Baba's played with two words, adhikar, rights, and adhinta, dependency. And so just reflecting on that whole subject of renunciation again, what is it that I am dependent on still that doesn't allow me to experience the happiness and the love of Sangam Yuga that I would like to experience? Because Sangam Yuga and that one opportunity through the whole cycle of 5,000 years, when I can actually experience God's love and the highest happiness that doesn't depend on anything outside. the inner joy that can stay with me all the time, all the time. And so if I'm not able to experience that, what is it that I'm still dependent on, that I haven't been able to let go? If you think about it, you'll be able to see what is it that you're still stuck with. And so finding out what it is that's holding me back and not allowing me to experience the treasures that God wants to give me now is a very important part of the journey. If I've surrendered, in the way Baba has said, just the surrender of the intellect, and I'm obedient to God, then the result should be happiness and love. And if there's something missing within the happiness and love, then while I'm still pointing the finger outwards, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. You can say, because of this, well, that will change. Because of that, that will change. But it's my own inner stage that I have to be responsible for. And so the stage that Baba is offering me at this moment is that stage in which I'm able to take everything from God. And yes, if I want other things, that's also my choice. But if really my journey of love and devotion and search for truth has been over thousands of years, just simply to find God, then that is available for me at this moment. And I think again it's a very interesting point to explore. But what is it that I really want? And if there are other things I want, Baba's going to say, that's okay. Doesn't matter. You can travel down those roads and see where it takes you and what it is you find. But if you begin to see that what I want is the original treasures that belong to the soul itself, the happiness, the love, the truth, the joy, then Baba's telling me that this is the time you can take all of those. And I know that when we are speaking out there, very often we say that you can find it all inside. And it's true. In the original stage of the soul, where the soul is truly the reflection of God, Baba's talked about being Bap Saman, like the Father. So the reflection image of the Father. So the soul does have all of these qualities. But the experience that I think everybody here has is that it's only possible to allow those qualities to emerge when there's that connection that not only allows those qualities to be emerged and expressed, but also I think the factor that people don't take into account is that the reason why those qualities aren't being experienced and aren't emerging and being expressed is because of all the karmic accounts that we've created. I want to experience peace, but I've allowed the sanskar of anger to become part of my makeup, my personality, and it's not something out there, it's something I'm carrying within myself. And so the light and the dark both are within the soul, but what is hiding the light is all the other stuff. And it's been a long time. It's not a few years, it's a few thousand years. How many actions do you perform in the space of one day? Just one day. And in terms of karma, it's been fascinating for me to see through the renunciation Murlis that Baba's talked about the karma of thoughts and feelings in a very big way. And in theory we know it, but Baba also gave us the opportunity to reflect on that. Just think about it and see how if you put out good feelings, good thoughts, that can change the situation and move things in the right direction. And if you don't do that, if you let yourself have any other quality of thinking, negative thinking or wasteful thinking, then you're putting a block on a good aspect that can happen, can emerge, and so things get blocked because of that. And so my choice, now that I understand about karma philosophy, not just external exchange of give and take, but the inner experience of giving and taking, how do I change that? How do I settle the things that I've already created and accumulated, but also at this moment to make sure that the same pattern doesn't continue? And so instead of settling karma, I'm not adding karma. And so this is where the only one who can help us take care of past karma and actually give us the power to deal with present karma is God. And so where today mindfulness is fashionable, many people talk about mindfulness and many people take it on a very secular level. Well, it's fine, it's good, it's better than not being mindful. At least being mindful brings you back to the present, makes you aware, makes you open and available to see what's going on inside and outside. The rush of the modern world made us forget about mindfulness and being available and present. What happens if you're with somebody and they're multitasking? They'll look at you and they'll look at their device and they'll look at you again, and you wonder, where is their attention? Is it here or is it here? And of course then they'll say to you after, can you say that again? Because it hasn't registered. Or from their response, they might not even say that to you, repeat it again, but from their response you can see that it hasn't fully registered. And so maybe you've had to say, shall I stop talking? And how long does it take to register that that's what you've said? You're waiting for a response. I mean, just one little example of how unmindful we've become. And so where things like mindfulness have come in, it's because it's like we've hit a wall and we've seen that things are really going a bit crazy. And so then ancient truths and ancient wisdom comes back. And it's beginning to come back. And so things like mindfulness have come in. But where it's been separated from the spiritual, of course it means that it's a start of the journey, but it doesn't bring full value. And so the word mindfulness actually comes from, in the Buddhist term, go back to the Sanskrit, and it's connected with awareness, smriti. And the word that comes, of course, in the Gita with smriti is nashta moha smriti labda. Forget about everything else, break your attachments with everything else, and focus just on one. Let the awareness return. The things that you've forgotten have to once again emerge. And as that emergence happens, and there's again the awareness of one, then yes, the changes that we want take place. So mindfulness, a starter, but mindfulness in a real positive way, where I'm able to be present here and now at this moment, but I'm also present. in the awareness of God. And in that awareness of God, yes, there's space in God's heart throne for me. And so when I have that awareness of God, then that awareness of God at this moment, being mindful, means I'm protected from adding on to the burden of karma. But when I actually sit in yoga, what I'm doing is settling the things of the past, but only when I've been able to let go, renounce, and have that fire of yoga, the powerful experience of the fire of yoga that's able to cleanse the soul of past karma. And so when karma comes in and I begin to understand the depth of the philosophy of karma and even the exchange that I have with God, not just the exchange with human beings, but the exchange with God, my thoughts for God, or adulterated remembrance, or remembrance filled with some sort of motive, or just pure love. And in that experience of pure love for God, the question that I often get asked, how can I allow my love for God to grow? And for me, yes, that first experience was very powerful, just knowledge. When I understood soul, I understood God, and that was a very, very powerful experience of God's love. But then to keep that alive, appreciation of the knowledge that God is giving, but also remembrance of the knowledge that God is giving. If I clutter my mind and my intellect with other stuff, I forget about the treasures of knowledge. And so to keep that love for God alive, these two things, the gratitude for God's knowledge, but also reminding myself, staying in that awareness, that smriti, that awareness of the truth that God is sharing. And if I can do that, then yes, my love will stay with a flame going in one direction, not wavering, not ready to be blown out at any moment, but the flame will go flying high, going straight to God. And seeing that, God's love will be showered on me also. And so the exchange of love, give and take of love, and so my karma with God. It's another subject completely, but I wanted to touch upon it because Baba's talked about karma so much, and of course Baba's mentioned, without saying this expression, karma with God, but there is that subject of karma with God. And within it comes, one factor is love. The other factor that Baba always talks about is honesty. My honesty with myself and my honesty with God. And that is the two factors that determine my connection and my relationship and my karma with God. Today we have many friends, family, relatives of Shantamata. A few weeks ago you were hearing the story of Shantamata, one of Baba's children from the very early days of Tennyson Road, and in those days total surrender and coming to Baba to class every day, and every Thursday coming to make special bhog for Baba. Other bhog would be prepared, but she would be making a very special bhog of the little peras, from fresh milk you make it into condensed milk, and it's what they make in Madhuban for Baba. So she would make those for Baba, and her whole family came to Baba, and many became Brahmins, Manjuben, Nagin Bhai, and some others sitting here. But to whatever extent they become Brahmins or not Brahmins, what I see is that their connection of love and cooperation is very definitely with Baba. And so the seeds of spiritual knowledge are being planted in each one of the souls who are here now at this moment, but also many who couldn't be here today. And so we're going to be offering bhog to Baba, but in the remembrance also that Baba's going to call the soul of Shantamata and let her experience Brahma Bhojan too. I know that through the period that she was unwell, any time I went to see her, it was always sparkling face and Baba, 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 nothing else except that. But yet, given that, she served her whole family, and very big extended family. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, so many generations. And her heart was big enough to accept everyone and just simply give them a huge amount of love so that they could stay close to Baba and spirituality. And so when souls have served in this way right until the very end of their days, it's a sign of very special souls. And when those souls leave, then the memorial they've left behind in the hearts of others is the memory of their goodness, their virtues that are still an inspiration for everyone. The whole family, but also this family, not just the little family there, but the big family here. So we're going to be offering bhog to that soul now. Om Shanti.